Hello and welcome to Smaulgld. In case you missed it, top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the week ended February 3rd, 2018. The new petrodollar, backed by U.S. oil production and exports surged to record levels. Gold and silver take a hit on the robust job report. Here are some of the other stories we're going to be covering. U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross talks of a multipolar world. U.S. to attack Venezuela. South Korea, no plan to ban cryptocurrency exchanges. South Korea's Samsung enters the crypto mining equipment market. Will India eliminate cryptocurrencies? Well, we'll take a look at that story. China, no capital controls, says China. Facebook bans cryptocurrency ads. However, Twitter embraces Bitcoin. India gold demand drops for good reason, and then rises again for good reason. New ways to smuggle gold. Gold fraud in China, and a South African gold mine tragedy. Let's first take a look at the gold and silver price action during the week. Now, earlier in the week, before the memo was released and before the job report, two big stories of the week, the market fell 350 points and gold and silver held their own, especially gold, and highlighting that gold, especially gold, is good insurance and provides a hedge against falling stock market and digital assets like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and the like. However, the gold price did fall 1.3% on the week after rising earlier in the week. Silver collapsed nearly 5%. By the way, the LBMA put out their price forecast survey for 2018. The average low gold price was $12.18. Average high about $1,418. But the gold-silver ratio, as a result of the collapse in the silver prices and the modest decline in gold prices, topped 80-1 at one point during Friday. It closed at 79.65-1. Now, the gold-silver ratio is one of the silver pumper prime propaganda pieces that they constantly tout. It's up there with COMEX default. It's equivalent to the gold pumpers gold back yuan stories. These are all stories that are cherry-picked data, and really they have no real basis in truth. And we've been hearing about the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable because silver is so useful. And, you know, of course, that belies the fact that many metals are so useful. You have to talk about how much silver is required for these many uses. And there's the zillions of tons in the road to Roomba, gold in the Grand Canyon. Therefore, silver is less plentiful than gold. I'm not sure that's true either. Silver is a shield and a bullet. Yeah. If you're committing suicide, maybe it is. JP Morgan is buying silver eagles. No truth to that story whatsoever. So this idea that gold-silver ratio has to return to its natural 16-1 ratio is a bunch of nonsense. Because, and I'll do a more full report on this, the gold-silver ratio was set at 16-1 mostly as a result of bimetallism. What that means is that a sound money policy back in the 19th century would have involved tying the currency to gold. Now, the Democrats always liked inflation, no different than today, and silver was an inflationary metal. It was cheap, and they figured if they can throw silver into the mix, then it would help their constituencies create inflation, because a lot of the poor farmers had mortgages on their farms, and they wanted inflation to wipe their debts away. It's very similar to today, the idea of QE. Silver was the QE method back in the early 20th century and 19th century. It was a cheap metal. And the other thing they used to do a lot, it was manipulated back then, but to create demand for it. So all of this talk about silver being so rare, silver has a historic use as money, that's all true. But it's also been an historic use of money for small change. It's never been the same store of value that gold has been. And indeed, the gold-silver ratio hasn't been anywhere near 16-1 in the 20th and 21st centuries. Indeed, if you look at gold, the only reason it even came close at times was the gold price was fixed at $35 from 1934 to 1975, and Americans weren't allowed to own it. But once Americans were allowed to own gold, and once they pulled the peg of the gold price from the Bretton Woods, forcing it at $35, the gold-silver ratio has averaged well over 50 to 1 since 1975. So this idea that that's just a story to sell you gold, that somehow it's unsustainable and has to come down, because if you look over time, the last 5 years it's done nothing but go straight up. And in times of crisis, yes, silver will outperform gold for a brief shining moment, or has outperformed gold for a brief shining moment, when both are in parabolic rises. And that's just because silver is a smaller market, and it's going to take the upside draft a lot better than than gold is. But the same is true for the downside, and we've seen that. Gold, basically, you haven't lost much money. In fact, if you started buying in 2013, you're up. If you started buying silver in 2013, you're down. So silver is not the metal that people try to make it out to be. That is a story that is pumped up, I think, in the last 7 or 8 years. I'm not going to name the sites, but you can think of where they are on YouTube. Because in China and India, where people actually buy physical metals, gold is the preferred metal. A lot of people don't like to hear that. All right, so let's talk about this week's Moronica. This is a feature we've been talking about for the past few weeks, where we highlight some of the ridiculous statements. And we start off with this woman. And here she is trying to be hip in her red pantsuit. And she said, quote, "To all the activist bitches supporting bitches." I don't know if that's cool. It's up there with her hot sauce comment. But there she is. Some people think she's cool. Now this one takes the cake. This guy at Davos, John McDonnell, says hard left Venezuela collapsed because they weren't socialist enough. Okay, so they're not socialist enough. Now here's another one. This is Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban believes that he understands the world, and the world would be better if they just government implemented his policies, or corporations implemented his policies. He's against the anonymous Twitter handles. He thinks everyone has to have a name attached to a Twitter account. And he says Twitter could create a sandbox that is exclusive and separate to anonymous tweeters, that is monitored by human rights and support organizations. No one trying to protect themselves should feel or be engendered. So he's basically saying, we got to have, if you want to be anonymous, I don't want you to be anonymous, but we can create this little sandbox for you to play in, which will be monitored. Now, this goes against the entire history of free speech. You had many influential anonymous works. For example, Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, Paine's Common Sense. These were anonymous writings. And the anonymous poster, the anonymous Twitter, the anonymous pamphlet writer, editorial writer has a place in a free society. But Mark Cuban doesn't seem to think so. He wants to make sure that everybody can be tracked down. And if you want to post something anonymously, they'll have human rights organizations. And he just wants to create a big bureaucracy for free speech. And it's a modest proposal lacking common sense, not worth a 1,000th of a Satoshi. What else do we have here? Because music. Ah, yes. Well, Hillary Clinton, she gets 2 Moronica awards, Smaulgld awards this week. She goes to the Grammy Awards. Now, she lost the election. That's fine. And she can speak out against policy, and it's perfectly her place to do so. Although most people who lose the presidency go on and do useful things. Jimmy Carter went off and built houses for the poor. Al Gore went and wrote books on climate changes and trotted around the world doing that. For the most part, they don't directly attack the president who defeated them. Obama hasn't done that. Well, he actually didn't lose, so he faded away. But in any event, Hillary Clinton, here she is. She goes on the Grammy Awards, which first of all is not her place. It's not the place of the Grammys to make it a political forum. But that's what's happened with Hollywood, with the Grammys, even with football and with the Oscar Awards, the late night shows. They think that it's their job or their duty to resist Trump. And there's a news flash for these people. While Donald Trump may be unpopular, it's not a universally held belief. And also, there are people who do want to resist Trump, but Not while they're watching the Grammys, perhaps. Not while they're watching football. And this is, I think, a huge mistake where this is this 24/7. Everything has to be against Trump. So she shows up and she reads a book, Fire and Fury, which is basically a tabloid trashing of Donald Trump. Who cares? Now, again, the people that care are the hardcore. We talked about this yesterday in our State of the Union and memo report. If you haven't seen it or haven't heard it, I went through the week's activities or the week's events relating to the Donald Trump State of the Union and the Republican release of the memo. And I think it's a tragic error. I mean, the Democrats are making a huge mistake. This resist concept is actually only appealing to a small segment of the population that's hardcore. And I predict eventually people are going to get tired of them. They're going to start poking fun at them because it's Russia this, Russia that, resist, resist. And it's this fury over basically nothing. To semi-quote Bill Shakespeare. Now, here's Moronic, and I thank Daniel Lecaille, who is a professor, for pointing this out. Here's Bernie Sanders in 2011. These days, the American dream is more apt to be realized in South America and places such as Venezuela. Wrong goes star, Mr. Sanders. And here's a guy who really doesn't understand economics, somehow thinks the American dream is going to be realized in South America. He's the guy who once said, and it doesn't make any sense for the person who is getting a student loan to pay a higher rate of interest than the person who's getting a mortgage. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. There's no collateral when you get a worthless liberal arts degree, and you should pay more for that loan. And by the way, maybe the government shouldn't be backing those loans. But everybody needs an education in this country because the 1% got all the wealth. And I don't know how anyone takes that guy seriously. I'm sorry. All right. Breaking. Stop the presses. Urgent retweet. What is this one? What was the big deal here that we had to stop the presses? This is big news last week. Oh, there was a misprint on the President Trump's State of the Union tickets. Wow, that was a big update. So they put State of the Union. Boy, isn't Trump dumb? He must have dumb people working for them. We better report on that. Now, Chuckie Schumer, this is another dumb thing of the week. Chuck Schumer comes out and he decides that the Republican memo is what the Kremlin is pushing. No, it's not what the Kremlin is pushing. It's almost not even worth discussing it because everything has to, if you can't have a point of view without being tagged Russian, which is ridiculous. These are the same people who would want an open and transparent government if one of their own were being investigated. And I'm sure they would not agree that questioning an investigation makes you a Russian agent. Russian agents. Moronic of the week. We covered this yesterday also in the State of the Union, but Joe Kennedy Jr., the third or the fifth of the patriarchal Kennedy family, he gave a speech in front of a car. Now, that just conjures up Ted Kennedy driving off the bridge and not reporting the accident. And he gave it from Fall River, Massachusetts. I think, again, who is advising these people to have Joe Kennedy, if they're trying to be inclusive and putting this guy up there, who's really a nobody? I mean, I don't know why he doesn't have a big platform. It's like they're trying to push him forward, and maybe people think that he can revive the Democratic Party by trotting out a Kennedy. And then, unfortunately, he's got spittle or chapstick on his face, and that's all people are noticing during his speech. I call the chapstick acquittic. It just doesn't make sense what they're doing. They're really only appealing to the hardest of the hardcore. It's howdy doody, chapstick acquittic. Okay. Bernie again. I'm sorry. I love mocking on Bernie. Probably because I can do his accent pretty well. But he gets up after the State of the Union. He's going to give his speech. The 1% got all the technology. Well, his speech gets cut in and out because, I don't know, they just had technical difficulties. But someone said it's the perfect metaphor for socialism, is you can't have the right technology. But one of the things he was saying is, and this is ridiculous, you know, Trump talks about all these bonuses, but only 3% of the people got them. Well, first of all, it's early. But second of all, nobody got them before the tax cuts. So everything to him everything has to be equal. Unless 100% of the people get these bonuses, they're not worth anything. They're a bunch of crumbs. It really appeals to the immature mentality of people, this wealth inequality. They would rather everyone be poor than have the whole society have a high standard of living, but God forbid somebody has 3 planes and a few houses. Someone has a few. I think Bernie has a couple of houses. He should house refugees in them maybe. Now here's another one. This doesn't make any sense. This is Elizabeth Warren. I have nothing against fighting for working families. I have nothing against if you want to be in a labor union and you want to fight for higher wages and you want to make arguments for the minimum wage. You can debate those things. But she says, this is Elizabeth Warren, it doesn't make a stitch of sense. She's in like fight mode. That's all. You just have to wind her up. She's going to fight for working families. Just like Nancy Pelosi. Both of these women are multimillionaires. That's how they make their living as a politician, is hoping they can fight for you. They're not fighting for you. She says, I went to the State of the Union. I wanted it burned in my eyes. If there's ever a moment when I'm too tired to keep fighting, I don't know what she's doing. I have to close my eyes and see Donald Trump and Mike Pence and Paul Ryan applauding themselves for punching working families in the gut. And I'm back in this fight. And I don't know how a tax cut is punching working families in the gut. Unless she means someone else got more money than the working families did, got to keep more money than they did, which I don't get it. I don't get this mentality at all. And that's why it's in Moronic. Now here we go. This is Moronic too. This is Bill Clinton. And he's saying, we have to crack down on illegal aliens. They're taking our jobs. These are jobs that would otherwise go to... He's unbelievable. The Democrats all were in favor of border security. They were all... Now it's divisive, but back then they were in favor of border security. They were talking about the strain on the social services. Now they realize that they need the votes, so they want them coming in. Look how young everyone is. There's Hillbilly Clinton, there's Al Gore, there's Newt Gingrich. Same gray hair back then. Chuck Schumer. Trashing a memo he's never read because he only cares about destroying Trump. Well, that's true. All right. Yeah, Jack Taper. It's offensive to say Americans are dreamers, too. No, it's not. No one has a monopoly on the word dreamer. First of all, the word dreamer was created to engender some type of sympathy for illegal aliens. Through no fault of their own, they're here and they have dreams and aspirations, comma, just like everybody else. And the idea that when you give a State of the Union that you want Americans to dream, it's perfectly logical to me. It's America. That's what he is. You think of it. The president is the head of the country. He's supposed to put the preferences and the desires of Americans and the dreams of Americans first. It's not divisive. It's actually unifying. Now, here's a guy who's saying something was treason. Which one is this? I think it's over here. Cory Booker. Nunes' memo is treasonous. I don't see how. Pointing out that there might be missteps in the procedures of the FBI and the CIA is not treasonous. It's representative democracy. When they say it's a threat to our democracy, no, it's actually the democratic process. Democratic elected people are overseeing bureaucrats. And I think that the threat to the democracy is to allow the bureaucrats to run wild, because if the democratic elected officials can't do it, then you don't have a democratically elected government in power. Yep, and here's the point. Obama, Clinton, Pelosi, Schumer, they all talk tough on immigration. That's what's ironic here. Now all of a sudden it's a divisive and racist issue to want to secure the borders. Here's the Washington Post. They will say anything. U.S. democracy is in grave danger, a new Economist report warns. Again, democracy means, and I'm not a big fan, I'm a fan of the Democratic Republic, but you want the democratically elected Congress to oversee the FBI. It's not a threat to democracy when the FBI and the DOJ have to answer to the elected representative. More Moronic. Nigeria at the forefront of fighting fraud. Now, this takes the cake for irony. Here is Nigeria. What are they worried about? Now remember, Nigeria is the place you get all those emails from telling you all you have to do is send your bank account information. They're going to send you millions of dollars. They need a business partner. Well, they're going to launch a probe of Bitcoin trading in that country. I'm sure they'll figure out all the fraud. Well, actually, they'd be in a good position to figure out the fraud. They export a lot of it. I think I heard that the biggest contributor to Nigerian GDP is fraud. This one is Moronic. If his country calls. This is John Kasich. He got 3 votes last time around, and now he's saying, well, if my country calls. What does he hear? Voices in his head? The country is calling him, and he may run for president? You have to be a delusional person to think your country is calling you. Well, you're stuffing your face with... I don't understand why anyone would think their country is calling them when there's been no groundswell support for this guy at all. This is my point exactly. I always say this. A scientist is never certain. We absolutely must leave room for doubt. There is no progress and there is no learning. Except when it comes to climate change, then the science is settled. Always disturbed me where people, they try to shut you down and tell you, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, it's science and you're a Neanderthal. You don't believe in climate change. No, I don't believe in climate change, and I don't not believe in climate change. What I believe in is that most people who are touting climate change, they don't know what they're talking about. They've just heard something. They've been told it's science, and they've been told that's all you need to know. The science is settled. It can't be settled. There's so many variables in what creates climate, and there's no way you can be sure of it. And thank you, John Fenneman. Now, dollar collapse. Let's go to our top story here. Back in 2014, I wrote, a black swan emerges covered in cheap oil. I was noting that, and this is way back, this is almost 4 years ago, that the amount of oil the United States was producing was really starting to ramp up. And I pictured a day where the United States oil production would pass Saudi Arabia, and eventually they would start exporting this oil. Well, that's exactly what happened. I said, if shale oil takes off, remember this is December 2014, it solves 3 issues. The U.S. becomes energy independent. Done. Creates jobs. Done. No longer needs Saudi Arabia to create demand for the dollar because the export of shale oil by the United States creates its own demand for the dollar and replaces much of Saudi Arabian demand. Well, look what's happened since 2014. Look at those oil exports. That's not the production. Those are the exports. The United States is now a major exporter. First of all, the concept of the petrodollar, and that if Saudi Arabia were to start taking, which they're not, start taking other currencies for their oil would somehow make the dollar collapse is wrong, because countries don't hold dollars only today so that they can buy oil. That was the case when the petrodollar agreements were first put in place back in the mid-70s. But today, countries hold dollars for far many more reasons other than just to buy oil. And oil trade is I think it's about 10%, 10-15% of overall trade. However, Saudi Arabia is no longer as monolithic as it once was in the global oil market. And the United States is swiftly moving up. I'm going to show you a chart in a second. So people are going to need dollars also to buy and to trade for oil. But I don't even think that that's the main point. I think that the reason countries hold dollars in reserve and use them is because now they have a 50-year history and they're comfortable using them and everybody else uses them. So it creates a network effect. It's not just to buy oil. Here you can see, again, the dramatic increase in exports and the I don't have the charts here, but the increase in the production is even more astounding. It's been a huge oil producer. And for all the people talking about, well, the dollar index is down, I say here, I think the Fed interest rate hikes, higher U.S. GDP, predicted at 5.4% by the Atlanta Fed this first quarter. Foreign investment in the U.S. because of the tax breaks, and continued Bank of Japan, Bank of England, ECB, easing the dollar index, and the dollar versus the pound, I think, will reverse by this summer. And especially because these central banks coordinate with each other, they're not going to allow the dollar to fall down. The ECB doesn't want a higher dollar. They'll start doing things to even this out. Bank of Japan will buy more bonds. ECB will cut off their taper, the lower rate. They'll do something to weaken their dollars. They all like to keep this stuff in a range. They all work together. Now, this got some people excited, but not many people saw it. Wilbur Ross was talking about a multipolar world. He was saying you can read the article. He was saying things about that people took as the dollar shouldn't be strong. No, what he was saying was the dollar doesn't have to be the only currency that people use. It is, and the Treasury Secretary said support strong dollars long-term interest in the United States. And then Wilbur clarified his comments. The United States is not abandoning its strong dollar policy. Basically saying what just makes sense is that there's other countries out there and they have currencies and they'll be used. But right now it's at the point where the market has spoken. No one wants the Chinese yuan other than the gold bugs who pump the Petro yuan and the gold back yuan stories. It's not bearing out in the marketplace. Here's this chart I wanted to show you. Well, this is a report I wanted to. Texas shale challenges North Sea crude as world oil benchmark. That's because there's so much production now, Texas shale. Wait, I thought the gold-backed Petro yuan, remember the gold-backed yuan-denominated oil contract, that was going to be the world benchmark, the game changer. Nonsense. It's not even on the, first of all, it hasn't even been released yet. It hasn't even been started. They've been talking about it for years, and clearly it's not going to be backed by gold. So we see the reality is U.S. oil production is massive, and now they're talking about Texas shale challenging the North Sea crude oil as a world oil benchmark. No talk of yuan-denominated oil. Game changer. Game changer, my eye. All right. Now, the cashless society, good news here. Japan says Japanese don't need digital currency as they love cash. That's the Bank of Japan. Japan's been very interesting. They're supporting cryptocurrencies. They're supporting Bitcoin. They're supporting cash. Well, they're printing like crazy, but I think they got some tricks up their sleeve there. Here's Charlie Lee on Litecoin. He's talking about a large e-commerce platform in South Korea integrating Litecoin via Bitthumb. And interesting, here's Robinhood. Now, Robinhood is going to offer Bitcoin. Robinhood had 1 million people sign up for its cryptocurrency platform. It's generally a stock trading platform, but they're going to be offering cryptos, including these ones listed here. And as I mentioned about Japan, you know, maybe Satoshi Nakamoto really is Japanese. I mean, Japan has the friendliest Bitcoin regulatory environment. World leaders warned of crypto at Davos. Here's old Howard Schultz of Starbucks. A trusted digital currency is coming, but it won't be Bitcoin. Interesting. Some people speculate, I'll give you the speculation, that he means they're going to start accepting Litecoin. I don't know. I don't think Schultz knows what he's talking about. I mean, I don't mean that. I don't mean he doesn't know what he's talking about. I think he's just giving an opinion on cryptocurrencies based on some passing reading he's done. Or maybe he is. Maybe he's saying that there's a trusted digital currency coming and he knows it and he's picked it and it's Litecoin. I don't know. You want to speculate, there's another story that at today's Super Bowl, the Litecoin Foundation is going to announce LitePay. Okay, so there's your Smaulgld speculating, something I normally don't do unless I specifically label it as speculation. Someone in New Jersey is selling a house for $2.3 million in Bitcoin, and it's a growing trend, they say. Yeah, so much for the South Korean ban on cryptocurrencies. NHN-backed OKCoin, Korea aims to start crypto exchange this month. As we mentioned above, the Samsung, one of the largest South Korean entity or like corporations, is going to start making crypto mining rigs. This is strange. Facebook banning all ads promoting cryptocurrencies. That includes, and it's funny, it says an intentionally broad policy aimed at stopping scammers. That includes that James Altucher video that you see on every YouTube and the sidebars of every ad. Where some crypto millionaire is going to tell you what to do. You click on it. It goes to, where does it go? What's the name of that company? Agora Research, the one that Rickards is involved in, and a few others. I think even Ron Paul's involved with Agora. Very large research company that makes use of advertising these long infomercials. Facebook is banning all ads promoting cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and ICOs. However, Twitter, point for Jack Dorsey, we support Bitcoin. It is a path towards greater financial access for all. And of course, he has the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin on his other company, Square. Interesting, the diversion there. I guess they want to have one test bid and then one ban. And here's Jack from Twitter saying he's in favor of Bitcoin with his application on Square. Here's a guy from South Korea. He says, absolutely use. One of South Korea's largest e-commerce platforms is integrating Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies with Bitcom, which is a South Korean trading platform. And it says this will fuel cryptocurrency adoption in South Korea without doubt. Senza dubio. There you go. In preparation, remember that big South Korean Bitcoin mine? Well, in preparation of that, Samsung enters a crypto mining market to mass produce these ASIC chips for China. Interesting. And South Korea officially admits no plans to ban cryptocurrency exchanges, but it uncovered 600 million illegal trades. This is right up what I was saying and predicting all along, that the countries don't want to ban anything. They want to go after criminality, they want to get their tax cut. This is big money here. There's no point in shutting it down. If they can try to regulate it, they can try to grab some tax revenue, they can nail some bad actors. It's a good thing for them. It's not as much of a threat as people think it is, if they can get people into the regulatory structure. BitConnect hit with second lawsuit over Ponzi allegations. That's not too hard to prove, probably. U.S. regulators are scrutinizing one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, Bitfenix. Now, the issue with Bitfenix is this Tether controversy. I wrote about that, sometime last year. And Tether quickly is a cryptocurrency that's supposedly backed by dollars. They haven't been able to prove that they are or they aren't. So when people sell their cryptocurrencies, rather than moving them into the fiat pair, the dollar, the euro, whatever it is, Korean yuan, they put them into Tether. Now, some are saying, and I don't get this. Maybe it's true. They're saying that they use Tether then to boost the price of Bitcoin, because every time the price drops, more Tether are created, and they said those Tether are used to buy Bitcoin. Yeah, but they're failing to mention when the price of Bitcoin drops, it's because people sell Bitcoins. If you remember what I just said 2 seconds ago, or 3 seconds ago, when people sell their Bitcoin, they buy Tether, so more Tether are created. And then when they think the price has dropped enough and they want to get back in, they use those Tether to buy Bitcoin. I'm not sure that that's manipulation. I'm not saying that Tether's a legitimate instrument. I'm just saying that it's being used, and what they're showing is circumstantial evidence that more Tether are created every time the price drops, and then those Tether are used to buy Bitcoin and push the price up. I'm just saying that's a natural function of people selling Bitcoin and moving it into Tether. That doesn't mean that Tether is legitimate. It just means that maybe that's not part of a manipulative scheme, or maybe it is. I don't know. U.S. court freezes BitConnect assets as, what does it say? As lawsuits mount. Now, next week, it's a big deal. SEC, CFTC, set for a Senate crypto hearing next week. Some people are afraid of this. Some people think this is going to be a boon for cryptocurrencies. I believe, maybe initially people will be freaked out by it. I believe that the more clarity that governments provide, like South Korea just did, like Japan has done, what they're going to allow and what they're not going to allow, or what they're going to try to enforce and what they're not going to bother with, what they're going to tax and so on, creates certainty for investors who are on the fence. Now, if they're going to regulate in a way that certain Bitcoiners find heavy-handed, they're going to get out because they don't like that, or they're going to try to figure out a way not to follow the rules. But you have to realize, for the most part, most people now that want to get into Bitcoin or all these crypto, they just want to make money. They're not expecting to get something on the side. They're not expecting to evade taxes. So no more than when they buy Apple stock or they buy whatever else. So I've been seeing, oh, they're going to send out the tax forms for Coinbase. Well, why wouldn't they? I mean, most people expect to pay taxes on the gains of their stocks, of their bonds, and of their cryptos. So I don't see how that's going to end anything, unless they come out and it's draconian and they want to tax them at 90% or something like that. But I don't think that's what's happening. We'll see next week. Here's what I'm saying. The price of Bitcoin goes down because selling and sellers take their sales proceeds and they buy Tether with them. That's why more Tether are created. And then they see the price goes down. They want to get back in. These are traders, and they sell their Tether and the newly created Tether, and they buy Bitcoin with it, and the price goes back up. Wash, rinse, repeat, as they say. Now, the thing about India, this was a hype story. The guy said, let's see if I actually have the exact language. The Indian budget was announced. This has to do with gold, too. And the headline was, India will eliminate use of cryptocurrencies. No, that's not what they said. Let me find the exact language. They did not say India was going to eliminate cryptocurrencies. They said that, I'll give you the exact language, India aims to eliminate, lost it again there, eliminate cryptocurrencies in financing illegitimate activities. That's different than they aim to eliminate cryptocurrencies. Yes, this guy had produced the language. I don't like this feature, I don't know if this is PCP, whatever you call it, where when you open up in a new window, it doesn't open up the tweet in a new window. As you can see what happens. And if you somehow don't manage to pull down the screen, it goes away properly. Anyway, we'll see if that comes up. The idea was India did not say, the finance minister did not say they're going to eliminate cryptocurrencies. They said they were going to eliminate cryptocurrencies in, yeah, well, it's not going to come up. That's not the one. Let's see if it comes up here. In illegal financing activities. That's not the one. Oh, never mind. We'll get it. Oh, wait, maybe it's here. Here it is. I already had it. The government does not consider cryptocurrencies legal tender and will take all measures to eliminate the use of cryptocurrencies in financing illegitimate activity as part of the payment system. Well, gold is not considered legal currency in India either. Doesn't stop people from using it, and they will go after you for using cryptocurrencies or gold in illegal financing activities. They'll go after anything you use in illegal financing activities. So people thought of that as like, oh my God, India is eliminating cryptocurrencies. Very dishonest reporting to say that the guy said he wants to eliminate cryptocurrencies. He didn't say that. He said he wants to eliminate cryptocurrencies in illegal financing activities. There it is. There's his statement. Arun Jaitley, Finance Minister of India. And then they said they're going to do their own blockchain. Here, this guy's astute. I think this is the Korean guy. He says, in what universe does this look like a ban? Indian finance minister says it will eliminate usage of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin in criminal use cases. Different translation. Mainstream media took it will eliminate usage of cryptocurrencies and forgot the rest. That is spot on, absolutely correct. Yeah, so I wrote here, breaking, world bans Bitcoin, retweet, save journalists the trouble from when another country makes a non-Bitcoin ban announcement. That was not a ban announcement. India vows to eliminate cryptocurrencies. Reuters, see? But then they did write. Now, actually, I wrote that in financing. I don't know if the Reuters actually covered the exact language. We'll take a look. There's Lizzie. What's she saying? There's your Nigerian. Well, let's see what Reuters said. Yeah. Look at Reuters' headline. India vows to eliminate use of cryptocurrencies. It's not what they said. Will stamp out use of cryptocurrencies, which it considers illegal. Boom. No hold bars, attack on virtual currencies. Leaving out that they said he wants to eliminate use of cryptocurrencies in illegal financing activity. So there's Reuters jumping on the bandwagon there. This is just a story about Tether and how they think it's being used to manipulate Bitcoin. You could take a look. I'm not sure it is, but I get the point how they think it might be. Central banks have considered issuing cryptocurrencies to avoid bubbles. Read that article. That makes no sense. Now, we had some Good news on the manipulation front. 6 traders were just arrested for manipulating the gold market. And these guys were spoofing and so on. Now, some people say, well, there, that proves manipulation. Other people say it doesn't prove manipulation. It only proves that these guys at a certain period of time engage in some manipulation that has nothing to do with long term. But first of all, small manipulations, short-term manipulations done over time create long-term manipulations. So I would imagine that these people, this is what they do it day in, day out. Now, the problem with these guys probably is they were probably not state actors. They probably weren't told they could go and do this. They probably weren't doing it on behalf of, to try to manipulate the price lower for any reason other than personal gain, and that's why they got nailed. So there's truth on both sides. When people say, there it proves gold manipulation. Not really. It proves these 6 guys. You can manipulate any market for your own personal gain. It doesn't mean that these 6 guys are part of a scheme to manipulate long term. But it also doesn't mean that there isn't a long-term scheme to manipulate. It could just mean these guys are not part of it. And I've said, and I keep saying it, just because I keep saying it doesn't make it true. It doesn't, because I said it for a long time doesn't make it true. But all these cases would mean nothing, because unless they put in place safeguards against manipulation, and nothing's going to change. They're just going to keep manipulating the market the way they see fit. We've had these cases before. They've proven manipulation. They still manipulate. And also, you can manipulate without actually getting caught, because you can make non-economic bids, and if they can't prove you have an interest in doing it, you're going to get away with it. So, for example, if I'm let's say a state actor, and I have an interest in lowering the price of gold or silver, and I use one of the bullion banks to do it, and the bullion banks want to short sell large amounts and just dump naked shorts on the market, you can't prove manipulation. You can only say that looks weird. But under the business judgment rule, the court's not going to say, well, why do you keep selling? Like, what's your point? They're not going to second guess their business decision. And that's a legal concept, because if they're stupid enough to lose money on it, they want to lose money on it, they lose money on it. Unless you can prove there's some agreement, which they're never going to be able to prove, they're going to continue to do it. So Indian gold demand wanes as jewelers expect import tax cut in budget. So they stopped buying gold because they thought the government was going to eliminate the 10% import duty. They didn't. But now that they know they didn't, they're back to buying. It would have been really good if they actually eliminated that duty, but they didn't. So what happened was Indian gold demand picked up after the tax announcement because there was no change. Right back to normal. South Africa, more than 950 people trapped, gold miners in South Africa. I think, unfortunately, 2 or 3 people died. So, yeah, I hear these people who always complain about Bitcoin. It's dangerous and it's polluting. Just don't forget that our mining of gold and silver is not environmentally friendly and is also very dangerous. And there's Gately saying the government will formulate a comprehensive gold policy. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. More on the... I got a request from a subscriber to go into detail, and I haven't done so, and I need to do so. The Australian Bullion Mint launching gold-backed digital currency. That's the Perth Mint. And the UK Mint is doing the same. You can see both of these stories. You can read them. I want to get a little more into detail as to what's going on with those crypto sterns. There's a story again. Your Royal Mint launching gold-backed currency. I got nice there. It's twice. Let's look at our goldpumper.com stories for the week. Yeah, remember? As soon as the gold back... Well, this is in response to somebody asked me if I believe some new pump story. I don't remember what it was. Gold back yuan. It'll happen as soon as the gold back yuan goes live by year-end 2017. Remember that? Oh, it'll just be the end of the year. Because China, she really wants to do this. And then there was COMEX defaults from 2009 to 2017. That hasn't happened. Or what it'll happen when we run out of silver in 2016. Guaranteed. Or when the dollar collapses in 2015. Or a sovereign-sized gold buy happens in 26 days in 2006. Or Shemitah. These stories never, ever stop, and people repeat them at me. They come at me with, oh, yeah, they repeat nonsense. And it's astounding to me that they have no memory, that they've been duped by these stories for years. Same story. New one comes out, they repeat that. Silver's so valuable, so useful. There's no silver left. There's billions of tons of gold in the Grand Canyon. Silver shield, silver bullet. Price of silver, by the way, is lower today than it was in 2010 when we were hearing people say, oh, with a monster box, you'll buy a city block. Probably no later than 2015. You take that to the bank. Gold game changer. Hidden secrets of BS. All right. U.S. authorities to make arrests and this is the same story with the gold manipulation. This is the fourth time Zero Hedge points out that HSBC has been charged with market manipulation after they swore it would never manipulate the markets again. This is why I'm not too optimistic that this changes anything. Now, found gold is another feature. This is the 1857 shipwreck. They're going to put this gold on display. This is, I wish I can get some more pictures of this, but I've got some links here. All this stuff here. These guys got arrested for stealing this right here. 17th century pirate gold. Because they had it like as a stick there. And there's the picture again of what they stole. These guys, poor these guys. They're looking for Roman gold, and they got their metal detectors. And looks like they found it. But it's a twist to the story. They didn't find jack. These were gold coins or Roman coins that were left behind as part of a movie, and they are all fake. Imagine your surprise. You think you got a Roman treasure trove, and you don't. Here's that gold we're talking about. Here's a great way of smuggling gold. They put the gold powder in a food supplement. So, you know, you got these big protein powders. There's gold in there. I don't know how they're going to get it sifted out, but I guess they figured that was a good way of smuggling. There's another gold seizure. Last time we talked about taking the gold and putting it into the phone like a brick. Well, they caught him doing that. This one, in Japan, they're concealing bars in the plain toilets. What would a Smaulgld update be without a report on China? China's vision of peace and harmony through trade, sound money, and gold. Well, this one's the gold-backed yuan game changer. What's going on here? China faces refinancing crunch with $2.7 trillion in bonds bearing down, but they've got gold, and they got a thriving economy. Here's how China gets along with Africa. How China spied on the African Union's computers. So through the goodness of their heart and honest and fair trade, China gave the African Unions a computer set of equipment, but inserted a back door, allowing it access to confidential information. But they got gold. Here, this guy. China will not block normal money movement in pursuit of trade liberalization. No, they're not going to have any capital controls. But see, you have to read the definition of what normal movement of money is by Sun Tzu. This is Chinese genius. They don't have any currency controls. Now, without pollution, here's the thing. China's January official PMI dips to 51.3, below forecast. And why? Well, they're blaming it on, now they have pollution controls and a cooling property market. Now, that property market was totally government engineered. And if they can't just pollute at will, well, their big economic miracle, China goes down the toilet. Yeah, Chinese central bank. There's a story. Chinese currency is still nowhere near overtaking the dollar, but gold-backed yuan, end of dollar hegemony. Gold bugs are the only ones who believe this Chinese story. It's unbelievable. They believe it. They swear by it. And it's tunnel vision. They don't look at anything else. They don't look at China in the whole. They don't look at their debt. All they say is, oh, United States owes a lot of money. Dollar collapse. End of dollar hegemony. Chinese are fed up. They're going to work with the Russians. And they're... Okay. Oh, what else? I think we're almost done here. Yeah, this one says China has gold and will end dollar hegemony. I think this is the story about all this talk. The United States will never audit their gold because it's not pure. And well, China banking regulators fines 19 banks for $3 billion in overpledged loan fraud based on the low purity of the gold. See, they want to believe the worst about the United States, the worst about the gold bugs, the worst about United States gold holdings. They'll believe anything about China, and they'll just say, oh, they got more gold, and they're lying when they tell you don't have it because of Sun Tzu, some strategic advantage. They've got so much gold, it's all pure, and everyone in China wakes up and says, where's the gold? And people, oh, I was in China, and they were just, the middle of the night, they just go out and they buy gold like they buy a cup of coffee. Okay. That's what they do. That's what every person in China does. Well, there you go. There's a river. That's the Yangtze River there. And I don't know if there's any gold in this plastic pile here, but that's how well China's doing, and we should all try to emulate the Chinese way of life because Sun Tzu and gold. Yes, gold back yuan game changer. Look at this one. This is probably blasphemy to the gold bugs here. This is Danny Lacaille again. China's infrastructure dream is a default risk nightmare. Everyone's like, oh, the Belt and Road. China's taken over the world. These are all massive, risky type projects. A lot of these projects in areas where there's no economic activity. So China's going to go in there, lend a bunch of money, and hope that if they build a bridge from one desolate area to another, or road or whatever, that somehow it's going to create economic activity. No, the economic activity that it's going to create is the economic activity in building the thing. And then if it doesn't pay off, they've just spent a lot of money and they'll never get their money back on it. Well, goodbye to Janet Yellen. She said she sees solid inflation thanks to highly accommodative monetary policy. She's gone. She thinks she's done her job by creating inflation, and then she can ride off to, I think she got picked up by the Brookings Institute. So they'd be lucky to have her so she can tell them how smart she is. And Greenspan warns we have a stock market bubble. No, where'd she go? I think Chai Girl here tells us that Miss Yellen went to, the Brookings Institution. There it is. Now, at the beginning I wrote in September 2017, is the U.S. headed for war with Venezuela? And I based that on a Nikki Haley comment that no one picked up on that she made about embargoing Venezuela. Well, now Tillerson, this was in the UK Reuters, not many people saw this one, raises the prospect of Venezuelan military ouster of Maduro. We'll see what happens there. Here's the BOJ offering to buy unlimited debt. What a surprise. What a surprise. And the U.S. economy to grow. Well, this is U.S. again. Well, before that, the U.S. Mint sales, I don't have them right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure the U.S. Mint sold just about 3.5 million U.S. American Silver Eagles in January. Not very good. Probably the lowest in 10, 12 years for January. January is usually a huge month. 3.5 is not much. I think they sold about 35,000 American Gold Eagles. Not bad, but again, not good, especially for a January. They normally sell about 90 to 100. U.S. economy, here's the 5.4% projection for the Atlanta Fed for U.S. GDP in the first quarter. Oh, lordy, 200,000 jobs created in January. Wages are up too. If you haven't seen the video I did yesterday, this is my point that if the economy continues to do well and the left just continues to whine about Russia and racism and sexism and lack of diversity and DACA and all that stuff, the people are just going to get tired of it, and calling this crumbs, and someone's going to fight a kick in the gut because you got $2,000 but only 10% of the people got it. That's going to wear thin. People are not going to be convinced that they're not doing better if they are doing better. Treasury yield, something to watch. It's going up. 10-year, 2.85. That's the highest it's been in 4 years. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider donating to Smaulgld, becoming a Smaulgld patron, donating through PayPal, donating through Bitcoin, Litecoin. All the links are on the site. Please take advantage of them. And also below this BitChute and YouTube. And consider buying your precious metals through Smaulgld affiliate links. You pay no more, no less than if you visit those sites directly. It's BGSC, SD Bullion, Golden Eagle Coin, Money Metals Exchange. Pay no more, no less than if you visited those sites. It's not investment advice to buy gold or silver, but Smaulgld gets a small commission if you do so. Thank you very much.